Welcome to the Raul Effect, where we uncover the hidden psychology behind human behavior, relationships, and emotional patterns to help you see people more clearly and understand yourself on a deeper level. Have you ever wondered why someone seems deeply connected to you one day, then emotionally distant the next? It may not be because they stopped caring. It could be because closeness itself triggers fear. In this video, we'll uncover the hidden psychology behind avoidant attachment and reveal why emotional withdrawal often happens when a relationship starts becoming real. Many people misunderstand this moment completely, and because of that, they often react in ways that make the situation even harder. When someone with avoidant patterns starts creating distance right when a connection begins to feel deeper, most people immediately assume the worst. They think the person has lost interest, stopped caring, or is simply playing games. But the reality is often much more complicated. What you may be seeing is not a lack of emotion. It may actually be the moment when fear becomes activated. Someone with avoidant tendencies usually has no problem with casual connections. Light conversations and surface-level relationships feel comfortable because they do not require too much emotional exposure. They can enjoy someone's presence while still maintaining their independence and keeping a safe emotional distance. But when a connection starts becoming meaningful, everything changes. The conversations become deeper, the emotional bond starts growing, the person begins to feel important, and suddenly the relationship is no longer just a simple interaction. It becomes something real. That is exactly when their inner defenses can start appearing, because now they are not only spending time with someone, they are allowing someone to see parts of them they usually keep protected. They risk becoming emotionally vulnerable. They risk being understood, needing someone, and possibly being hurt. For someone who has learned to survive by depending only on themselves, that level of closeness can feel overwhelming. So instead of moving closer, they create space. Sometimes the change is obvious. Their messages become less frequent. Their responses feel colder. They share less about their thoughts and emotions. They suddenly become busy, distracted, or focused on other areas of life. Sometimes they even begin searching for reasons why the connection does not feel right. But these reactions are often not random. They are ways of protecting themselves from emotional discomfort. And here is the confusing part. The stronger the connection becomes, the stronger the desire to escape may become. From the outside, it seems strange. Someone finally opens up, starts feeling connected, and then suddenly pulls back. But psychologically, it can make sense. For an avoidant person, emotional closeness can become connected with fear. The same thing they deeply want, love, connection, and being understood, can also remind them of possible rejection, losing control, or becoming dependent on another person. So when the relationship begins reaching a level they secretly desire, their fear can interrupt the process. Imagine someone who has spent years building emotional walls because those walls help them feel safe. A deep connection does not simply feel unfamiliar, it challenges the protection system they have created over time. It asks them to lower defenses they believe they need, and that creates an internal conflict. Some people respond to emotional pressure by moving closer and seeking reassurance. Others respond by creating distance. The avoidant pattern often chooses distance. This does not mean unhealthy behavior should be ignored or that inconsistency should be accepted without limits. Understanding someone's fear does not mean abandoning your own needs, but it does mean you stop seeing every moment of distance as proof that you were never important. Because when you interpret fear as rejection, your reaction often becomes emotional. You chase answers. You try harder to prove your value. You seek constant reassurance. And ironically, those actions can make an avoidant person feel even more pressure and increase their need to withdraw. The healthier response is awareness. Understand that pulling away does not always mean the connection meant nothing. Sometimes it means the connection became significant enough to trigger their protective instincts. Once you understand this pattern, your perspective changes. You stop taking every shift personally. You stop reacting to every moment of silence. Instead, you begin seeing the emotional pattern behind the behavior. Their withdrawal may not be a reflection of your worth. It may be a reflection of their fear. Because people usually do not run from things that have no emotional impact on them. Often they run from situations that feel powerful enough to affect them deeply. For someone with avoidant tendencies, strong emotions can feel dangerously close to losing control. So they step back, not necessarily because they feel nothing, but because they have not learned how to stay emotionally present while feeling vulnerable. And this brings us to an important question. Are you reacting only to their behavior, or are you trying to understand what is happening beneath the surface? The answer determines whether you become trapped inside their emotional cycle or whether you remain grounded in your own confidence. Because this journey is not only about understanding them, it is also about understanding yourself. When you realize their distance may come from fear rather than a lack of care, you stop desperately searching for validation from them and begin building emotional stability within yourself. And that shift changes everything. But understanding the first stage of withdrawal is only the beginning. The next confusing part is the inconsistency, the moments when they seem completely connected one day and emotionally distant the next. Then suddenly the next day feels completely different. The same person who seemed emotionally open now feels distant, distracted, or impossible to reach. Without understanding the psychology behind this pattern, it can become extremely confusing and emotionally draining. But these mixed signals usually are not happening randomly. They are often the result of an internal struggle happening beneath the surface. An avoidant person can experience two opposite emotions at the same time. One side of them genuinely wants connection. They want to feel understood. They want emotional closeness, trust, and the comfort of having someone who truly sees them. That desire is real. But at the same time, another part of them becomes afraid of what deep connection requires. Emotional intimacy can unconsciously feel like losing independence, becoming too vulnerable, depending on someone, or giving another person the ability to hurt them. So internally, they are caught between two powerful forces. One part says, move closer. The other part says, protect yourself. And that inner conflict is what creates the confusing behavior you experience from the outside. When closeness feels safe, they move toward you. When the connection starts feeling intense or overwhelming, they create distance. Their desire pulls them forward, while their fear pushes them away. Often, they are not even fully aware of this emotional battle happening inside them. To them, creating space may feel like protecting themselves, but to the other person, it feels like uncertainty and emotional confusion. The reason inconsistency affects people so deeply is because the human mind naturally looks for security and stability. When someone's behavior is consistent, you feel calm because you understand your place in their life. But when someone constantly changes between closeness and distance, your mind starts searching for answers. You replay conversations. You analyze small details. You wonder what you did wrong. You start looking for the moment when everything changed. Without realizing it, you can become attached to the uncertainty itself. You keep waiting for the caring, emotionally available version of that person to return because you have already experienced moments where they felt deeply connected. Those moments become powerful because they give you hope. They provide enough emotional reward to keep you invested, but not enough consistency to create true emotional safety. That is why mixed signals can become so difficult to walk away from. However, it is important to understand what is actually happening. You are not necessarily dealing with someone who feels completely secure but randomly chooses to act distant. You may be dealing with someone who is internally divided between wanting connection and fearing what that connection represents. And when you respond by trying harder, chasing more, or constantly trying to restore the closeness, you may accidentally keep the cycle alive. The more you focus on fixing their emotional uncertainty, the less opportunity they have to face and understand their own patterns. The real shift is not about becoming better at predicting every mood change or analyzing every action. The real shift is recognizing what their inconsistency is showing you. It shows that there is an emotional imbalance. Because when someone is not emotionally aligned within themselves, they struggle to provide consistent security. Even if some moments between you feel genuine and meaningful, that does not automatically make them a bad person. It may simply mean they are not emotionally prepared to create the type of connection you need. This is where your own awareness becomes important. You stop trying to earn consistency through endless effort. You stop believing that emotional stability is something you have to convince someone to give you. Instead, you understand that consistency is a reflection of emotional readiness. And eventually, you begin asking yourself a much deeper question. Am I connected to who this person truly is every day? Or am I holding on to the version of them that appears only in rare moments? Because those are two completely different experiences. Once you understand that difference, their unpredictable behavior starts losing its control over your emotions. You stop being pulled into every emotional high and low. You stop confusing intense moments with genuine emotional security. And instead of constantly asking, why are they like this? You begin asking a more important question. What kind of relationship am I willing to accept? That question changes everything. Because emotional clarity begins when you stop chasing confusion and start choosing stability, honesty, and a connection where both people are emotionally present. And this is where many people experience the greatest confusion. Because the most difficult part is not only that an avoidant person fears closeness, it is that they often create distance right after moments of deep emotional connection. You share something personal. You experience honesty, vulnerability, and genuine closeness. For a moment, everything feels different. It feels like the walls are finally coming down. It feels like progress is happening. And then, unexpectedly, the distance returns. The connection suddenly feels stronger. The relationship feels calmer, safer, and more emotionally meaningful. It feels like both people are finally moving closer. And then, almost unexpectedly, something changes. The same person who was open and connected becomes quieter. They share less. Their emotional presence starts fading. They become harder to reach, almost as if the very closeness that created the bond also created the need to escape from it. If you look at this only through an emotional lens, it can feel incredibly painful. It can feel like rejection. It can make you question whether those moments of closeness were even real. You may start wondering if you misunderstood the entire connection. But when you understand the psychology behind the pattern, instead of taking it personally, the situation becomes much clearer. For someone with avoidant tendencies, intimacy does not only create feelings of connection, it can also activate hidden fears within their emotional system. Deep closeness means vulnerability. Vulnerability means allowing yourself to be seen. And being fully seen can unconsciously bring up fears of dependence, losing control, being abandoned, or becoming emotionally overwhelmed. For someone who has learned, either consciously or unconsciously, that needing others can lead to pain, emotional closeness can trigger an internal warning signal. So the distance that follows is not always about trying to hurt someone or play with their emotions. Often, it is a way their mind tries to regain a sense of safety. Their emotional system creates space because space feels more familiar and controlled. Think of it this way. They can experience closeness, but only up to a certain point. When the relationship reaches a deeper emotional level, their defenses begin to activate. And that defense can appear as silence, less communication, emotional detachment, or suddenly acting as if they need complete independence. But here is the important part. The connection you experienced was not necessarily fake. In many cases, those moments of openness may have been the most genuine moments of the entire relationship. The issue is not that the closeness had no meaning. The issue is that the closeness carried an emotional weight they did not know how to handle consistently. When people fail to understand this, they often turn the blame inward. They replay conversations in their mind. They search for what they did wrong. They wonder if they said something that caused the change. But when you step back and observe the pattern, it becomes easier to understand. Closeness creates fear. Fear creates distance. And without awareness, that cycle continues again and again. This is why your own emotional awareness becomes so important. When someone pulls away after a meaningful moment, your natural reaction may be to immediately fix it. You want to send more messages, offer more reassurance, and bring back the emotional connection you just experienced. But for someone who is already feeling overwhelmed by closeness, that immediate pursuit can feel like additional pressure. At the exact moment they are trying to create space to calm their emotions, your attempt to move closer may make them want even more distance. And without realizing it, both people can become part of the same cycle. One person creates distance because they are trying to feel safe. The other person seeks more closeness because they are trying to feel secure. And the pattern continues. This is why understanding the situation matters. When you realize their withdrawal may not be a reflection of your value, but instead a reaction to emotional intensity, you stop responding from panic. You stop trying to immediately fix every moment of distance. Instead, you learn to give space while still protecting your own emotional balance. You begin to understand that intimacy, for some people, is not something they can simply enjoy without conflict. It can be something their emotional system struggles to maintain. Sometimes they need distance after closeness because their mind is trying to process the vulnerability they just experienced. But understanding this does not mean accepting unlimited emotional unavailability. It does not mean ignoring your own needs or staying in a situation where you constantly feel abandoned. It means recognizing what belongs to you and what belongs to them. You stop taking every retreat as proof that you were not enough. You stop carrying responsibility for fears that were created long before you entered their life. And most importantly, you learn that someone else's difficulty with intimacy does not determine your worth or the value of the connection you offered. You begin making choices from a place of emotional stability instead of reacting from confusion or fear. Because the deeper truth is this: a healthy relationship is not created only through powerful emotional moments. It is built through the ability of two people to stay connected even when vulnerability feels uncomfortable. If every moment of closeness is followed by emotional distance, the relationship slowly becomes unstable. The same pattern keeps repeating. Connection grows, fear appears, distance follows. Then another moment of reconnection happens, and the cycle starts all over again. Over time, this pattern does not create a stronger bond. Instead, it slowly drains both people emotionally. That is why the most important question is not whether those moments of closeness were real. In many cases, they truly were. The deeper question is whether those moments can develop into something consistent, secure, and emotionally sustainable. Because real intimacy is not only about reaching deep emotional connection for a short period of time. It is about having the ability to stay there together. It is about creating a bond where fear does not constantly pull one person away whenever things become meaningful. Eventually, a difficult realization begins to appear. Some people can love deeply in certain moments, but struggle to remain emotionally available consistently. Some bonds feel unforgettable because of their intensity, yet they lack the stability required to truly last. And no matter how meaningful those moments are, temporary emotional highs cannot replace the foundation of trust, consistency, and emotional presence that a lasting relationship needs. This is where true awareness becomes the turning point. The moment you clearly recognize the pattern, everything begins to change. You stop reacting to every shift in their mood, every period of silence, or every moment of emotional distance as if it defines the entire relationship. Instead of constantly searching for reassurance, you begin seeing the bigger picture. You stop losing yourself while trying to find clarity in someone who is still struggling to find clarity within themselves. You stop sacrificing your own emotional needs just to keep the relationship alive. And little by little, you begin building your emotional stability on something far more dependable: your own standards, your own boundaries, and your own understanding of what a healthy relationship should feel like. That change is powerful because it moves you away from confusion and toward confidence. The deeper reality is simple. You cannot make someone feel emotionally safe if they have not learned how to create that safety inside themselves. You cannot build lasting stability with someone whose inner world is still ruled by fear and emotional uncertainty. And no matter how much love, patience, or effort you give, You cannot transform occasional moments of connection into lasting intimacy through your effort alone. Real emotional security has to come from both people. Both individuals have to be willing to face vulnerability, communicate honestly, and stay emotionally present even when things become difficult. One person cannot carry the emotional weight of the entire relationship forever. What you can control is your own response. You can choose clarity instead of confusion. You can choose consistency instead of chasing emotional highs that disappear as quickly as they arrive. You can choose relationships where emotional support flows both ways instead of holding on to someone's potential while ignoring their present reality. Most importantly, you can choose not to lose yourself inside a cycle that keeps repeating without ever truly changing. That is where real emotional strength begins. Strength is not constantly running after someone who keeps pulling away. It is not endlessly analyzing their behavior while slowly neglecting your own emotional well-being. And it is not convincing yourself that if you just understand them a little more, everything will finally fall into place. Real strength comes from recognizing the pattern for what it is. It comes from accepting reality instead of fighting it. And it comes from deciding that your future deserves more than uncertainty disguised as love. Because a relationship cannot thrive when consistency is replaced by unpredictability and emotional safety is replaced by constant doubt. In the end, love is not measured by how deeply someone can affect your emotions during a few unforgettable moments. It is measured by how reliably they remain emotionally present when life becomes real. It is shown through consistency, trust, openness, and the willingness to stay connected even when vulnerability feels uncomfortable. Anyone can create an intense emotional moment, but building a peaceful, secure, and lasting relationship requires much more than intensity. It requires commitment, emotional maturity, and the ability to keep choosing each other over time. And once you truly understand that, the question you ask yourself begins to change. You stop asking, why do they always pull away when things become serious? Instead, you begin asking a question that has the power to transform your life. Is this the kind of relationship I can confidently build my future around? Or is it a connection that keeps breaking apart, leaving me to rebuild my heart over and over again? Because the answer to that single question gives you something far more valuable than temporary reassurance. It gives you clarity, it gives you peace, and it gives you the confidence to choose relationships that offer not only emotional depth, but also emotional stability, mutual effort, and the kind of lasting connection you truly deserve. Real love is not measured by moments of intense emotion, but by consistent presence, honesty, and emotional security. Understanding avoidant behavior helps you see the pattern more clearly, but it also reminds you to protect your own peace and self-worth. Choose the relationships that bring stability, mutual effort, and genuine emotional connection, because that is where lasting love is built.